Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Chris Otundo, the CEO and co-founder of the Craft Catalyst. Welcome to this Craft Ed podcast series where we'll tackle matters, education matters, children upbringing, really anything that has to do with bringing up the next generation of talent. The ethos that Craft Catalyst is really pushing is that we're looking to catalyze talent for the future of work. And so on this episode, we'll be tackling how to prepare our young adults, our teenagers for a global world. How do they have global mindset? And what we then decided to do is find an individual who, in our view, really espouses these values and has continuously done this through the different things that she's been involved in. And so today with us is an individual who I truly respect. She is a professional who's built a very illustrious career. And beyond her career, she's a parent who's given her children the freedom to really find their own roads. And who better really today to share with us her experience, because we feel as though really the solution is really to share, to be able to make better informed decisions as we offer our children support. And so welcome, Dolly Sagwe. I don't know if the third name Onyoni is also makes it to the list.
Yes, it
So
does.
Dolly Sagwe Onyoni, a good friend of mine. Thank you for making time to be with us today on this Craft Ed podcast series. Like I said, where we'll be having some very interesting conversations. And I guess to begin with, Dolly, it's only 11 right now, and I imagine that this is probably your fifth meeting, considering the number of things that you are involved in. But like I said earlier, you wear many hats. You're a parent. You've had this illustrious career. You're involved in numerous projects. I'm just curious, what do you call yourself? What title do you go by? I think as Africans, we're just so fixated with titles.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to label you, but I struggled.
Yeah.
What would you call yourself? And welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
I also do struggle with that. So what I've come to realize is that I just have a portfolio life.
Right.
I hear they nowadays call it a portfolio career.
Right.
So I have my full-time job, my employment that I do from typically, 8 to 5, what we talk about 8 to 5. Then there's stuff that I do outside of work during the week, outside of work during the weekend, that defines who it is that I am and how I grow as a person.
Right.
So outside of my work, I do a lot of community work. I work with young people. I work with women on matters leadership and financial literacy. And I also serve on several boards,
Yes.
profit and non-profit, or I have served that there. And I also try and do some farming. So it's really a portfolio life.
It's a portfolio life.
Yeah.
So I guess the challenge with that naming is it's interesting because there's no school that teaches you a portfolio life.
Correct.
And I think that really is the ethos and the thinking behind our conversation today. That school, for some reason, and the academics that we've kind of become accustomed to, doesn't prepare us for a portfolio life. It's very one track in its approach.
Yeah.
And so hopefully with you today, we can demystify what that might look like if you're looking to replicate that for your child.
Yeah.
So you've, like you said, you've worked in all these different places. You've supported both young adults, teenagers, and professionals, really. And that's really noble. My question for you really is, so having worked with these generations, 3 generations, in fact, we were having a conversation earlier, Gen X, Gen Y, and now the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
You suddenly must have seen a common theme across these different generations that has informed your decision to really support them and work with them, and offer support. So I'm just curious, what is it that you've seen that is perhaps lacking today?
Yeah. So one thing that cuts across the 3 generations I've worked with is that from the age of 0 to around 25, we go through life, growing through life based on a system that is set by mostly the government. That's the learning, the schooling system. So you come from your primary school, secondary school, you make it to college, university, or whatever tertiary institution you go to. And then around the age of 23 to 25, your life is handed over to you. And largely, no year were you taught about how to navigate life really, but most of what we were taught is how to pass the exams, how to be the best in class. And when your life is handed over to you in your mid-20s, you start struggling with, where do I start?
Right.
How do I move forward? How do I grow? And this was an issue even I'm a Gen X, and it was an issue then. And I think the advantage I got is that I had very early in my career life a very good employer who got us in and started training us on how to master growth for ourselves.
Right.
And that is when I started sharing what growth looked like to my peers who are Gen Xers as well, to my siblings, my neighbors, my cousins. And that is the thing that I see constantly till today. Kids who graduate from university coming out and they fumble the first 2-3 years, not knowing how to make that progress and how to lead themselves towards the success that they have been told about for almost 25 years.
Right. And you were saying earlier that it's at that point you realized that by the time they're now adults, there was a gap that perhaps had not been filled much earlier. And therefore, we probably need to go further back to resolve those gaps. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I started working with people in their mid-20s, late 20s, sometimes early 30s, I realized that most of the conversations I was having could actually be fixed much younger, at a much younger age. Things like how you plan your time, competencies like leadership, competencies like how you speak, just building your confidence levels, figuring out how to think through stuff. Those competencies don't need to wait for you at 25 or 30 or 35.
Right.
And then again, the school system that we go through doesn't bring these competencies out. And this is one thing that, because of the lessons I picked at the workplace, my husband and I sat down and were like, we need to raise these children differently. Yeah. So as my children were coming into their early teen years, looking at what was happening at the workplace and the gaps that I saw there, or the people I was interacting and the gaps that I saw there, and then looking at those young children I had at home, I was like, they have time, and then they have the capability of learning, right? And learning beyond the academics. So 3 things that we picked with my husband was we have to take them through 3 different paths of learning.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think that's a very interesting flow. That for you, it was that you saw people at the workplace, saw the gaps, and then decided then that would then influence how you parent. And I think that's an interesting point that I'd like to highlight on, because you then today talk about these young people who you supported at home, but they're no longer young anymore. They are now in their early 20s, most of them. So young adults, all looking to take on the world. And I think this episode or this particular podcast series is really around building young adults or children who can take on the world. Increasingly, we take our kids to school, and the focus is really, you need to pass your exams. You need to do well and get that A. But will you survive if the world, if you're then subjected to an organization that is intercontinental, that you're supporting people in different countries? Or are you just built for your country, in this case, Kenya? Listening to you talking about those children who you supported at home, they're no longer young anymore. They're now in their early 20s, and you've been very intentional about how you've brought them up. And I think that is one of the reasons why we felt that you were truly the right person to have this conversation with. You've been very intentional. And intentional, I mean that today your 3 kids have chosen different paths. And we were talking earlier about how different they all are. Some are more academically inclined. Some chose the path around sports. which again is very unconventional. I remember growing up, if you wanted to do anything outside school, that was not considered a career. So one of your sons explored football. Your daughter today has been enrolled in a very prestigious program, I think Tata Business School, and we'll talk about that. What is it around all these different exposures that you had that has then informed the way you're parenting today?
When I got into the workplace myself, I actually realized that I had been prepared for local employment. But my first employer was a multinational. My first travel experience was like mind-boggling. I was going to France. I think the farthest I had gone was some town, maybe Shags, just around the road. And I had to quickly learn a number of things, even just opening up my mind to understand that travel outside Kenya happens, and it could happen to you at the age of 24.
Right.
That's where I started. And looking back, I realized that travel was much more restricted then, but it's not restricted for our children now or for ourselves now.
Yeah.
And that travel could happen, actually physically, you take a flight and go.
Right.
But it could also happen in your living room where you tell them, these are the countries around you, more than what we did with the atlas, and the maps that we used to study.
Exactly.
So what I'm trying to say is, what I picked out there that I came and changed in the way I was parenting was, growth has to happen in multiple lanes and pathways. And this is what I was trying to say earlier. My husband and I realized that the academic journey for our children was a third of the learning process that they needed to go through during their teen years.
Right.
That was 1/3, the academic journey. And that academic journey is largely informed by governments and curriculum developers. We have little input in that. We can influence it, we can campaign for changes, but our input is little because of how fast or slow that changing process happens.
Absolutely.
The second part of the learning journey that we had to take up as parents was building competencies, getting them to build competencies that enable them to learn how to lead themselves. What does leading yourself look like? How do you develop your mind to be more and bigger and go beyond what you currently are learning at school? What competencies do you need to bring out? And we enroll them in programs, local programs we even invented in the house, and then programs abroad as well.
Yeah.
And the third one was exposure. And exposure means different things. And I don't want it to sound like you need to fly to somewhere and see the world out there, although we did that with our children. But even just going down to Sagana and figuring out what's all this, what's this waterfall, how do we do this, and which part of Kenya is this?
Yes.
We had conversations about taking the children to see the expressway. The expressway when it was being built around Museum
Absolutely.
Hill.
Yeah.
And in our minds, we did not understand how the road would come above the other road. That on its own is exposure, just thinking about the engineering aspect of it without using big words.
Yes.
So exposure comes in different ways. So the three things we did with our children was to figure out quickly which parallel learning paths we needed to expose them to while they were in their teen years that would prepare them for their young adult years. And that was the academic journey, the competencies journey, and the exposure journey.
Wow. And I think something you said around exposure and the fact that you don't need to necessarily travel out of the country. I think that's a very interesting one because the thing is we do pass the highway every so often, but the deliberate intention to stop with your child and actually explain, even your teenager, to explain that look at what's happening. Look at how our country is evolving. To go to the stadium that is recently being built and say, this is how large infrastructure projects look like. We have so many opportunities. At least if you're in the city, I think most of the cities in the country today are actually having roads being built. So what the example you gave is such a real example. I think the other day, my friend and I as well, and every other weekend we drive out to different factories. I think we went to the Brown's factory for cheese, and you just learn so much. But I can imagine what that does for your child when they begin to see how careers unfold.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunity, even just locally,
Yeah.
to do that. I'd like you to talk a little bit about some programs that you've exposed your children to. I think what I found fascinating is how you first identified them, and why you then chose to take them on those programs. What was your thinking? What is it about? I think one is the Teta program, and also your son's sports program. I'm really
Yeah.
curious to hear about that.
So even before Theta,
Yeah.
the programs prepared my
Right.
daughter for Theta.
Got you.
Yeah. And maybe let me start it. Maybe let me anchor that first
Yeah.
with the parenting philosophy that I have.
Right. Right.
And that parenting philosophy is that we give our children wings to fly, but roots to belong. And let me explain that. The wings to fly is where you get them curious about life, curious about what could be, what's possible. You get them going through discovery lanes. You get them traveling physically or virtually. They fly in their minds, they fly physically, but they know there's a world out there. And however it is you bring that together, you need to do it as a parent. And hopefully schools also do this. That's the wings to fly part. And then roots to belong is where you anchor the child in the family with the family identity. This is who we are. This is the name we carry. This is where we got the name from. In this family, we are Christians. These are the Christian values. This is what we do. This is how we serve our community. And this is where we call home.
Wow.
So at any one time, your child will have these two kind of opposite sides
Yes.
of I can be, I can go, I can do and
Right.
become.
Right.
But I also have a grounding and an anchoring here where I'm at. So that's the philosophy we have chosen to parent with. Now, coming back to the programs, most of those programs would either lie between the wings to fly part or the roots to belong. Let me start with the roots to belong. And some of the programs that we implemented clashed with the academic calendar. And we were ready to face that.
Yeah.
I'll start with the roots to belong.
Yeah.
We are Christians. My husband and I joined BSF, Bible Study
Yeah.
Fellowship.
Yes.
And the meetings used to be, at the time, every Monday. So my husband used to go pick my son and go with him for BSF. That then would mean that he's come from school around 3:30, he's picked, he's given a snack, they go to BSF, and it ends at around 7:30.
I imagine there's probably homework to be done.
Of course.
Right.
So the first Monday, he was in trouble. Homework was not done. Second Monday, he was in trouble. Homework was not done. And what we did, I just took and it was being written in the school diary.
Yeah.
And I picked the diary and I wrote and said, "Dear class teacher,
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that his homework will never be completed on Monday because we have prioritized this program. However, you have our commitment that Monday and Tuesday homework will be done by Wednesday morning.
Yes.
Thank you." And they left this child alone because in that stage in his life, he needed to invest time in the roots to belong, the value system, who we are and how we identify. And that time needed to come together.
Yeah. Wow. I think roots to belong, wings to fly, really, really profound. And I will still let you finish on the wings to fly. I'm just curious. I think the story you've given us is one that's it clashes with perhaps what everybody else is doing. And my challenge and the question to you is, how does a parent become that bold to take that on? Is it because you know it's very important, or is it because it's just deep rooted in you about the importance of what you're doing?
It is the importance of what you're doing. You are the parent and you're parenting this life. School is important as well. But if you have that conversation with a teacher and it's understood that it's not a careless or neglect or act of negligence,
Yes.
then I believe that the right school will understand that.
Good.
Yeah? And we got the right school that understood that. And they were very clear, okay, fine, your homework needs to be done. Monday, Tuesday homework needs to be done by Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that's one of the programs for anchoring them with the roots to belong. The programs for the Wings to Fly is where we had quite a journey with both the children, and with the school. Again, an example. In their mid-teens to late teens, it was important for them to get exposed to local and global programs for different reasons. First of all, and this is the major reason, they had time. And that time needed to be channeled in a productive way.
Yes.
The second thing is that they had the capability. I could see they were able to learn more. And therefore, we needed to fill that time with different competencies, learning journeys that would enrich their education through those years. So we got programs that they're online actually. Some of them I was just Googling and finding these programs online. One of the programs that my son went through, actually my son and daughter went through, is the RISE program. I'm sure most parents have seen, whenever the RISE program is looking for applicants, it's all over all WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
So we went in and looked at the RISE program, my husband and I, and it's a program that teaches teenagers how to think through a business, ideation until implementation. And we're like, let's do this. It's a 6-month journey.
Yeah.
So he picked it up during his last high school year. And there were about 6,500 kids around the world who started that journey at the time he started with my daughter. And they went through business ideation and how to build a business, take it to market, get a client, figure it out, and each time writing back a report. And in that whole process, they were going through material that made them think differently, not just that, but realizing that they were part of a global community of teenagers that were doing that because they had some online sessions as well with each other, gave them the understanding of, there's another 15-year-old somewhere in Russia that I could be working with. There's another 15-year-old somewhere in, I don't know, Europe or Australia. And they started appreciating that. So what happened is that the program was actually running in his final year of school, of high school.
Yeah.
And he made the cut to the finalist list. So they started off as 6,500, and the competitors were looking, the competitor owners were looking for the top 500 globally. My son made the cut as a finalist, top 500. And this was, I think, 3 or 4 months before the main exam, high school exam, which is very busy and...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we looked at it and we're like, okay, you made the cut. This now becomes a priority.
So Dolly, I think it's interesting because I imagine that as a result of all these things that you've anchored in your children, they then have become very impressive and have been selected into very interesting programs. I think you and I were talking recently about the TETA program, the TETA Business School. Is it TETA Business School? TETA College?
TETA Business School.
Yeah, and then your son has also been enrolled in HALT
Business School.
And I think what I found interesting in my research is that the entry into TETA is, the acceptance rate is only 2.5%. And so congratulations that your daughter actually made it into the program.
Thank you.
For context and for our audience, the acceptance rate for Harvard is 3.5%. And so she really did well. And so did your son to also get into that program. And so these programs are unconventional. And I'd like you to explain what it is that makes them unconventional. And then we can talk a little bit more about it.
So we were looking for something that would get them to learn differently. And we didn't even know what that was. In fact, we thought that that answer would come through a gap year program. And then we go straight into traditional university.
Right.
My desire and hope for many years was for the children to have their first degree in Kenya,
Right.
or in an African country, build their local networks, and then maybe second degree they go out. But life just didn't happen that way. What makes TETA, I'll talk about TETA, what makes TETA very unique is that it's a 4-year program that gets these young people at the age of 18, 19, 20, up until I think 23, mid-20s, because some actually did drop out of the TETA students, drop out of prestigious universities to come and start first year again. What they do is that they learn business by doing
By
business,
doing
by
business.
building businesses.
Yeah.
So out of the 4 years, 8 semesters, they travel for each semester, they're in a different country. And in that country, they build a different kind of business
And these are countries across the globe.
across the globe. So my daughter is now just about to finish her second year. She was the first Kenyan to be accepted onto the program.
Wow.
And it was largely because of the preparation during her teen years.
Yes.
What I mentioned earlier.
Correct.
The other learning paths that we took them through.
Right.
So it's really learn how to build a business and then get your business certification or university certification.
Wow.
That's how they approach it.
And then you mentioned a gap year. So perhaps what was your thinking behind a gap year before this other great opportunity emerged?
So the thing that we have assumed for decades is that just because a child has finished high school, that they understand adulting. Those are two different cycles. The completion of an academic journey at high school that then opens the door to college or university is one path. But there's a psychological, emotional transition that this young adult is going through. And my belief has always been to give some breathing space between high school and first year to allow the child to grow emotionally and psychologically, discover who they are, discover the world around them, and how they fit into the world.
Right.
And even just start asking themselves, what do I want? What is out there? Tell me more. Instead of going straight into university. Now, this is not to say that we give the gap to the child and they do a lot of nothing.
Correct.
It has to be a constructive gap year.
Yeah.
And in my home, my philosophy I have at home is that the gap year, you'll do a number of growth competency and skills and stuff training. And then one of the things you must do is to learn a skill that you will market and earn from your second year.
Wow.
So I actually give my children pocket money in the first year of university, and in the second year they sort it out on their own.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think that the other point to raise is that, look, one, a gap year will cost you nothing. It may cost you if you're taking them on a program, but I imagine the TETA program is quite expensive. And the assumption that maybe our audience might have is that the only way to give your child unconventional or different is that it has to be expensive. And I think for us at Craft Ed, we have explored different destinations, and we've come across Malaysia, where I actually happened to study a couple of years ago, about 20 years plus. And I found it fascinating that the schools there have very tight industry linkages, so that the students are not just learning, they're actually doing. So I went to one school where they had an actual trading hall, like a Wall Street trading place within the school.
Wow.
You're studying cybersecurity, and they had a whole cybersecurity security center. I saw the culinary spaces, and they had actually proper hotel setup, simulation of real work, and they have massive industry linkages. So I think the point is that the TETA program is quite prestigious and quite expensive, and you're very blessed that your daughter also got a scholarship. But there are opportunities elsewhere that are not as expensive, and that we would be happy to work with the parents through. But I think that's just something I thought I'd share. And I guess with the gap year, once again, you can offer your children exposure, like we had said earlier, through different things. I think my curiosity is also around. I mean, you talked about the roots to belong. You talked about the wings to fly. The thing about wings to fly is that sometimes we ourselves we haven't nurtured those wings. And so we have our own biases. And so the question is, how do you as a parent navigate letting your child fly when you yourself have not grown those wings? You probably are also limited from exposure. What has worked for you and seeing your child go and do these things?
Yeah. I think it comes to a lot of self-awareness. You need to be able to ask yourself real difficult questions, whether the decisions you're making are for you or for the child. You have to do the inside job. And I didn't know this. I didn't know this until I landed on a parenting class during COVID
Right.
that was being led by Dr. Mkolwe. In fact, just 2 weeks after the shutdown,
Right.
I got something on WhatsApp that talked about parenting teens, and they were calling it Raising Future Parents. And I got very curious about it. So I called the number, registered, and we got started. The class was on Saturdays at 7 to 9:30. I tell you, Chris, it was one of the best classes ever that I have attended. And for one reason, that you know, usually when you're learning something, whether it's from school, you know, the Pythagoras theorem,
Yes.
the simultaneous,
Yes.
you learn today for application someday,
Much later.
and even maybe not, right? We learned a lot in school for later. I am an accountant. I learned CPA for later. This parenting class, 7 to 9:30 every Saturday morning for 12 Saturdays.
Yeah.
Immediately we were done and said goodbye to our classmates and Dr. Mkolwe. Immediately we opened the door to the rest of the house.
You had a chance to practice.
There was an immediate chance to practice, and you'd catch yourself, you know, just about to do something, and then you go like, no, we've been taught differently. We need to handle this differently. So it's you doing the inside job as a parent.
Yeah.
To understand what does parenting in different seasons look like.
Yeah.
Moving from control and, you know, like teaching
Yeah.
to stewarding and coaching.
Right.
And that's the opportunity that we had during COVID. It was just a blessing that we were all at home, observing each individual child and figuring out how to parent them in that season of their lives.
Wow. Wow. Look, I think it's safe to say that your parenting style is slightly different from most, and it's very intentional. But more importantly, is just your intentionality around giving back to the community, raising future leaders. And my curiosity is, look, the common theme is that you seem to feel as though young people are more capable than we are offering them.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious as to where that came from. What is it about your brain that has made you that drawn to that kind of calling?
Chris, you and I had that time when we were young. It's just the question is, how was the time being filled? And what was the content that was filling that time?
Right.
I did have time after school and watched a lot of TV and did housework, did cooking and doing some house chores.
And hosting family.
Hosting family over the weekend, doing some church programs and participating in youth, you know, or teen classes here and there for church.
Right.
So the time has always been there. The eagerness and curiosity of a 15, 16-year-old has always been there. The thing now, when you start parenting deliberately and differently to prepare this person for the marketplace, is to place in front of this person who has time and curiosity the content that will get them excited to learn more.
Yeah.
When I was young, there was the Olympics, I think, in South Korea. And in my home, we got a book that was teaching us how to learn Korean. So there was one side had English, the other side had Korean. And I taught myself how to do that alphabet and how to write it and how to do basic communication. I couldn't speak it because there was nowhere to learn how to speak it. So the curiosity was there.
Yeah.
And then different kind of content was placed in front of me.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying now is we still have kids who are 15, 16, 14.
Yeah.
They have time and they have the right levels of curiosity.
Yeah.
Place in front of them things that will help them develop competencies and explore places that they could be or that they could participate in. Give them this content.
Yeah.
And that is where the magic will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I let you go, there's a conversation around financial literacy, which we might have had earlier. And you started alongside your co-founder, Prosper Path, which was focused on financial literacy and as well as, what's the program? The other program for it?
Life Smart.
Life Smart. I guess those two programs, once again, very, very focused on really transforming young people, offering these even young adults insight into money. What led you to those two different programs?
I think it's just seeing the gaps that adults at the workplace had that were painful to them individually, but also painful with the teams that they're working with. And I realized that that stuff didn't need to stay, to wait until you're in your mid-30s or mid-40s to figure out. And maybe around mid-30s, mid-40s, nobody comes to teach you or correct you. So I picked those gaps or opportunities that I saw and went down to look for people in their 20s and those ones in their teens and said, let's build these competencies. Financial literacy is one of them. But financial literacy, to me, it's the end of this journey. It starts with transforming the mind. Once you allow the mind to figure out how growth is and how becoming is, and then you steward it to the potential that it carries, then everything else starts coming into place.
Wow. Dolly, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an honor speaking with you this morning. Thank you once again for making time. Once again on Craft Ed podcast series, we hope to have these conversations. Offer parents, offer students an opportunity to look at talent differently. We are preparing through our conversations students and parents for the future of work. How can you be more deliberate around those conversations? How can you perhaps think differently about your career? And so we couldn't have been more honored to have you, considering the things that you're doing. We feel as though we're truly honored that we had a front seat to hear from you. And so thank you very much. So thank you so much. We look forward to more and more conversations. And to learn more about what we're doing, look out for us on crafted.thecraftcatalyst.com. You will learn a lot more about Craft Ed and the work that we're doing. Thank you very much and stay tuned.